You are listening to the Building a Legacy series on That's What I Call Marketing, a content series with Legacy Communications.
Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you'll hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Don't forget to rate or review the show wherever you are listening or watching. It really helps us reach an engaged community of marketers just like you. Before we get into today's show, don't forget, if you'd like to partner with That's What I Call Marketing, you can find out all about it on our website, that'swhaticallmarketing.com/sponsor. So on to today's show, and this is the first in a new 3-part series called Building a Legacy. The Building a Legacy series with That's What I Call Marketing and Legacy Communications is a look into the evolution of communications, the importance of storytelling, create a culture of both creativity and effectiveness, and the future trends shaping the industry. It's going to be packed full of personal stories, great examples, and hopefully some laughs along the way. This series is going to be a comprehensive look into the foundations, growth, and processes of building and maintaining a legacy in the marketing world. So on to our guests today, and I'm joined by Brogan and Kevin Moore. Now, most people in Ireland, I think it'd be fair to say, will know Bernard. Bernard played with Dublin for over a decade, earning 7 All-Irelands, 13 Leinster medals, 4 GA Football All-Star Awards, as well as Footballer of the Year in 2010. You may not know that he's a qualified chartered accountant. I didn't know.
Proud, yeah.
Yeah, and holds a Master's in Business Management and Marketing. I don't know how you fitted it all in, and set up an agency. Right, we'll get to all that. Kev is himself an accomplished sports person representing Ireland in squash. I don't have the numbers though. I did look, Kevin.
Old man squash, over 40s.
Kev started his career in Shine Communications in London, and then he was in Fleischmann Hillard in Dublin. Worked with the likes of Cadbury's, Gillette, Six Nations, Solon Cup, Volkswagen, Glenisk, Energia, and so many more. Obviously in Legacy as well. Kev has an incredible ability to understand business problems and how comms can solve them. That's not in a bio anywhere. That's just my view of you, Kev. So
thank you very much.
Done some work with you. I would definitely say that. So listen, to top it all off, you're both very sound gentlemen as well. So I think that's a very important thing and really helps as your business grows. This, in some ways, is, I don't know if you've both sat down together and told this story about
we haven't,
building legacy. Yeah. So, Bernard, why now?
Yeah, I think you're just on the hamster wheel a lot, and the agency world, and as you talk about the business model of it, of selling hours and trying to get a margin so you can grow and employ more people and win new clients and all that, the stress of, as all businesses have, of getting through a year and being successful and driving on. I think that just takes up a lot of your headspace. And only in the recent number of years, we've kind of really focused on getting that bird's eye view. So talking to different leaders, and we had a non-exec over the last number of years. We've started to try and grow up a bit as a business, and getting that bird's eye view, that 30,000 feet, is something that sometimes businesses find hard to do, because there's so many issues in the now, so many kind of day-to-day stuff that need to be solved, and all good stuff and some bad stuff. But taking that is so important every now and again, to create time to look at the business and the strategy. But even more so than that, you never get time to even look back and celebrate the wins and look at the journey. And that's fundamentally the most valuable piece for me, is the people, the journey, the fun, the crack, and obviously trying to build something. And we named it the business legacy for a reason. You know, we're trying to build something in a different way. And yeah, we're in the middle of the journey, and it's going well. And I think it was a good time to just reflect on it. And I think sometimes you don't look at yourself and storytell enough. We're always doing that for our clients. And sometimes it's good to just look back at the journey you've had. And we're at 11 years, 12 years, so it's probably time to kind of reflect a bit,
tell the story
a bit
in the world. Kev, you were kind of saying, when we get into the story itself, you were saying it's kind of been enjoyable, almost kind of sitting back and thinking about it.
Exactly, that the first week where we've really, in the build up to this, looked right back to the start, where, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but James, Bernard and myself, and before me, James and Bernard. So thinking back to some of the early client relationships we had, some of the early client wins, and some of the people that worked on our team in the early days that we're actually now working with on the client side, that's been a really enjoyable thing to just take a minute and look back on. And it's not about patting yourself on the back, because there's tons of things you're looking back at the learnings, and that does help you grow. So that's been really, really enjoyable. It's a really worthwhile exercise, actually.
So Byrne, back to the origin story then. So the starting of Legacy, like how and why, or why and how, whichever way you want to go about it, did it come about?
No idea. But, I suppose that the acorn of the idea was me being involved in sport, working with brands like SuperValu, Vodafone, Volkswagen as an ambassador, and seeing the behind the scenes of PR, behind the scenes of events, behind the scenes of, I suppose, what the brands are trying to get out of that relationship, and then sometimes feeling that we could do more. This could be done better. There could be better content made here. We could do more creative pictures and what we're doing, and just think about it like that. And I always, even when I was involved with those brands, I'd always give my suggestions about how we could do it better, and I kind of just had an interest in it. I suppose how we got there in the end is James came to me with an idea. I was an accountant, as you said, working at a crowd called Fairgrant Sparks in town, now Grant Thornton, and I'd done my time, became accountant, and just recently became a fellow of the Chartered Accountancy Ireland. I got my paper last week. Did you? I must put it up on LinkedIn, yeah, so that shows the age. Here today or something. Shows the grey hairs, no, I did accountancy because I have a love of business and numbers and kind of that side of the house. James was a detail-oriented person. I'm a bit more, even though I'm an accountant, I'm not a stereotypical guy. I like the business side of the house. I like sales. I like meeting clients. I like building relationships. James, again, would have played football with me with the Dubs, had a similar value set than me. I knew he was a really smart guy, and anything he was going to do was going to be successful. So when he came to me with a few ideas, and I intro him into a few people, I said, I'll do one better with you, I'll come work with you. we'll create something. Didn't know what I was going to be, where I was going to go, but we just started out literally. We had a couple of grand in a bank account. One of our early investors gave us a room under his in a box room in his office in Lucan, and the two of us got just knocking ideas out. I remember a visualisation of our first budget. We didn't have any wages for ourselves. We worked for 2 years without earning a wage, so we just really didn't. We just said, let's get in a room, let's start doing things in the marketing world, the marketing sphere, and see where it gets us. And it took us a while to get there, but eventually we bumped into people like Kevin along the way that put a bit of manners on us. But but it was just an exciting journey. I was still playing sport, James still playing a bit. And to be involved in the sporting world and to give those learnings to brands around how we can do things better from an ambassador point of view, from a marketing point of view. And that was the crux of the idea. Again, It was not formed. Like all businesses, you evolve, you pivot, you go to where the energy takes you. But for us at the start, me and James just said, I think when you talk about team and stuff like that, having someone that kind of is different than you, that you synergize with, that can not the same exact personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses. I think that's a core component to any good team.
And probably someone you trusted as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
family trust and that kind
everything we've done over the years, and Kev included, that joined us shortly after we started. It's all about trust. Like fundamentally, like that psychological safety is the word they use now, but it's trust. Like you, like any decision we make, anything we're doing, any mistake we've made, it's all built and executed on a means of trust and trying to be better and trying to grow. And I think if you have that, you learn from your mistakes rather than get worried about things, and you can enjoy the journey along the way. So that's a key component of it. Yeah.
And so Bernard meets Kev. How did that come about? Was it I don't know, at Crow Park in a man? what was the
squash court?
Squash court. Yeah.
It wouldn't have been because he would have hammered
was he
me.
A fan looking for an autograph. How did it come about?
No,
do you remember?
It was a number of encounters and situations. Kevin obviously was working with loads of big brands, with Fleischmann at the time, and would have bounced across them in that world of sports marketing.
You did one of your first Legacy presentations to me, if you remember. You came into Fleischmann when they'd set up Legacy, and I got them to meet several people in Fleischmann at the time and present what Legacy was at the time, which was partly about players, partly about sponsorships and a few different things. And my memory of that is how nervous James was, if you remember at the time. It was one of your first, James is a brilliant speaker, but it was one of the first presentations to a group of peers or people you were trying to get to. So we had a few encounters like that in the early days.
No, and exactly, and we knew that we weren't experts in the field. We knew we had an insight, we knew we had something different and we could bring value to the table, but we knew we needed very early on in our journey, which is probably 2-3 years into the journey, and we were only formatting our ideas. We knew we needed someone to drive along with us, that we didn't maybe have that credibility or that process and that kind of operational aspect of PR, marketing, etc., and sports marketing, where we were initially starting, and consumer PR, where to Kev, and even corporate side, Kev had all these little nuggets, and it was through those encounters through sports marketing. And I remember trying to court Kev. It was like going on a date with a new girlfriend or something like that. I remember knocking into his house and making cups of tea. He used to work with Cadbury's cream eggs, so he has these like Cadbury's cream eggs cushions on his couch. I was like, this fella is a bachelor for a reason. At the time, I think you were.
At the time, my now wife had moved in, and she'd open the door, let James and Bernard in, and we'd disappear for an hour into exactly what was the bachelor pad.
With Cadbury's cream eggs cushions, yeah. So, and again, it was a big leap for Kev.
Yeah,
we were only new in the space. We were only up and away. We had a bit of momentum, bit of success. He knew we had relationships. He knew we had some sauce there, and probably saw what he could bring operationally and process-wise. So we courted for a couple of months, and obviously Kev had to get his head into space of moving from a Fleischmann, obviously a global agency, and the comforts and the stability of that into a moving ship, a moving target like Legacy, and the trials and tribulations of that
and a box room office and all of this stuff.
But that's a huge bet to take.
Yeah,
okay, no names given, but no background in actually probably building something at that time, and you maybe had a few successes, but at that time, I can imagine that must have been it wasn't a huge bet, in that I probably wasn't going to start my own agency. I probably missed that, I probably wasn't as entrepreneurial as James and Bernard. So but there is something in me that is, if you know what I mean. So when it came along, what excited me about it was, I knew the three of us would click and would get on, and that's obviously, a lot of businesses don't work because partners can, along the way, it's a very stressful environment. So I kind of knew, my instincts were that would work. My other instincts were I probably wasn't going to start. I'd been long enough in Fleischmann, so I probably wasn't going to go out my own and totally start from scratch. The guys had done an incredible 2 years of getting the thing started. So it was a less risk for me to come on then. Right. It was still a big jump. And we really had no idea exactly where it was going to go. And it's sort of, you think it's going to go in one line and it goes off in different ways. But what excited me about it was, I could somewhat influence making it my own with the lads and bringing other people on that could do the same. And that became the most rewarding thing. What the lads did by bringing me on, we have since brought other people on like that have really been able to get after spaces. And that has become, you can see the energy when you give it to someone and say, like, we don't know exactly where this is going. You're gonna decide with us where it goes. And it's a really powerful thing. So that was what it was. It was mainly with the view that, we could do something special together. The journey, and I do always go back to that it is, at the end of the day, there's ups and downs, but if you can enjoy the journey, I don't know when the end point will be, so the journey is really the key thing. But it was about
we promised them Friday pints in the Straw Hall every Friday. We've probably been there we've been there a few times for one pint on the way home. Not enough as we would have imagined when you have your own agency, but the journey is so important. And I know it's a cliche, the journey, but like having those wins and trying to reflect on them, or having those little moments where you do get a point in the Straw Hall or whatever it is, where you enjoy. We're trying to get a game of squash in Fitz with his club for 10 years, and James in the States now. So we're trying to get him. We're trying to get that pulled together. But those little moments are just so valuable. You know what I mean? And
but even the early mornings, the first year of the business was, we started at 8 o'clock every morning rather than 9. It's only that extra hour, but we had an hour. We didn't even meet in the office. We met in a cafe. We had eggs and coffee. This is a WhatsApp group we still have between the three of us is called that, because they're all built on conversations. And it's about, before you get into the nitty gritty of the emails and everything, it was about where this could go.
Eggs and coffee was probably before gym and coffee.
Yes, true, actually.
Trademark. We patent eggs and coffee.
So it was, but it's those conversations, when I look back, are the most influential and informative, and you don't really realise they're happening at the time, but you're spending a conversation every day about where the business could go. It's invigorating, do you know what I mean? And scary, but it's brilliant. Yeah, that's
the respect, you know what I mean, of each other, and kind of going, because then you can have the disagreement and get on with whatever the decision
and
is.
Family
made.
can do that a bit, and James, he would have called me out a lot, as in just directed me along the way, because I can get lazy and lack detail at times and go off on tangents. But I asked him to do that. I say, call me out, and I say the same to Kev. There's things, if there's areas you want me to get at, just pull me up on it. You know what I mean? Point me direct. I don't mind feedback. Like if it's constructive, and it's for the greater good. You can give me as much of a rollicking as you want to. Like, no issue with that. And I got the same in sport, and I actually reacted well to it, and the guys know that. So they're
But that's a skill set in itself. I think that's probably what has been part of the recipe for success, is that, you know, ability to take feedback, and to not take anything too personally. And I think that's why you can have a debate, an argument even about something, but I think that's where, you know, James and Bernard can be quite self-deprecating. They know a lot about this area, but it just helped them when the three of us got together, and then the Clares and other people we brought in, you know, just further strengthened our knowledge.
You talked about some of the wins that came along. Was there a point, you had some client, you know, Littlewoods, Energy, like, was there a point when the three of you, you know, maybe even early on, we're kind of going, like, we're onto something here. Like, we've got something, and it's kind of, you know, we can pay ourselves.
Yeah, I think probably the best moment, I think, or the most one that sticks out to me, probably two. I remember meeting over in Selbridge Manor, John Gillick and Declan O'Rourke from AIG. Just Dublin had won a sponsorship. AIG had just taken on the sponsorship of Dublin. Dublin were in a good place. I was on the way to my holidays. I rang Declan O'Rourke from the plane, stood off, and I visually remember, we're in the space. Before you give it to anyone, will you have a chat with me next week on the activation side of the Dublin sponsorship? We know it better than anyone else. I know the dressing room. I'm obviously there. We have an agency, just so you know. So I got his number, and I held him off for a couple of days, and eventually did a few bits for them. And then we got a $2,000 retainer with them, and it was the biggest thing since sliced bread. It was fantastic, and that gave us. I think it was our first retainer that we could put into our little budget that we had on an ongoing basis, and that was a real big moment. Volkswagen was another one where it was another big global brand that we were being trusted with. And again, it's a relationship, and people back you, and they trust you that you have an insight, and you have to then we graft on the ground to get it done. That was a big one.
What was interesting with Volkswagen was that was a sports management at the start, sponsorship management. The lads were managing an under-13 football tournament. They were creating a football tournament for them, and it was everything from branding the pitches to it. And just slowly as we started to do those, I was only in the door then, slowly as we started to do those sponsorships, we started to bring more communications thinking and more thinking, you know, it was as well as managing the sponsorship event for them, we started managing, I suppose, bringing more creativity. Have you thought of this? More PR launches, more digital media. So, and Volkswagen, the Kilmacud Sevens was another thing that they did. And our first ever award was, as well as managing the Kilmacud Sevens sponsorship, we brought this whole social media element to it, where all the matches would be broadcast through Twitter, as well as, you know, and that was our first real campaign, and that won our first award. And those moments are big, because you're not pigeonholed as a sports management company, you're now a sports communications company, and then it grows from there.
Was that intentional to move out then of the senior sports manager to sports communication? I guess bringing you in was part of that.
Exactly, it was, and I think that's when the Littlewoods bringing. So we had started to work with, had some big brands on the books, and that is a hugely impactful thing for any company, to have an AIG, a Volkswagen on your books in whatever form, so you can really then go off and leverage that. But I think bringing Littlewoods into the GAA was another big moment for us. They came to us to do something small in the sponsorship space, and we came back to them a few weeks later with the biggest sponsorship in Ireland, and it was like they looked at us like as if...
Did they?
Yeah, absolutely. But we had gone to so much effort to show them why this would be a game changer for them, and it was those kind of that added energy and insight we brought to it. And Jeff Scully, the MD at the time, took a chance on it for the business. He had to put his neck out of the line. It turned out to be a brilliant thing for them. They needed to have more of an Irish perception in the Irish market, and sponsorship is, as we know, a brilliant way to do that. But for us as a business, that was going from to the next level of a sponsor. That then led to other sponsorships with rugby, and then other services, consumer PR. But that one, I do remember that the one pint we had after that when we had won Littlewoods Ireland, and that was because we did everything from negotiating the sponsorship right through to creating content, to a positioning piece around style of play. There was it lasted years.
A runway on the middle of Croke Park, which is one of the only activations that's got onto the pitch.
Right.
So it was a
we negotiated that into the contract the last minute, where no other sponsor. It was a very last minute.
Negotiated a box in Croke Park so we could get into a few games. We actually did pretty well for them, in fairness. Yeah, we did a great journey with them.
They did a fashion show thing in one of the boxes as well.
Exactly.
I remember
we did a sleepover in Croke Park the night before an All Ireland final. A family got to sleep in a bedroom in Croke Park in one of the boxes. So these we really probably did flex our. We were just about ready for that. We really then did flex, I think, a wider content, PR, creativity, events, hospitality, all of that. So that really was a a game changer in the sports space for us.
Did you have a moment, because you said you were ready for it, but did you ever have a moment, because I remember being in agencies where you pitch something and then you win it and then you go, oh shit, now we have to deliver against this. Did you have
I'll
any
give you one
moments?
example of that. Was that the sports space was fine. We knew that really well. We built that out. Our second division was consumer PR, and we were building that out. Again, in the comfort zone of the areas I knew best at the start of my journey with the business anyway. We had just built the consumer, Claire O'Grady, who'd come in, no sport, solely tasked with building the consumer division. We'd built it to a certain size, and then we pitched for Aldi. And it went in from nowhere to our biggest client.
Right.
And I had the biggest, apart from Little Buds, it was probably my favourite win, because it was a big pitch process. We were probably the last favourite at the start of the pitch process. And they, saw something in us, and it was just at the right stage where we could manage it. It's a juggernaut, straight into our biggest account. So, for the first year, we're all learning a little bit to manage an account that size. But a year previously, we possibly wouldn't have even gone for it. Whereas that was right on the cusp of, okay, and and absolutely we had the moment after going, now can we do this?
Yeah.
And that was the makings of the consumer team for sure.
And it maybe tied to that then, because that obviously worked. Were there some of the things along the way, particularly those early years, because you're kind of, we said it before, like building the plane as you were flying it. Were there things that kind of didn't go to plan?
I think operationally we had a lot to learn, and Kev brought a lot of kind of the process of agency, and that was a big part of Kev coming in. Like, Kev, right, you've been in agencies, the pricing, the timesheets, all this kind of process piece of actually how an agency works and grows. I think the operational piece was definitely one that you brought a lot to it, but we learned. We were all new, and we hadn't built a business before, all of us. So
do you think that helped, the newness?
Yeah,
I think
you're not afraid of making mistakes. You're trying new things. Loads of things we tried, we implemented, and they fell away like any business. But then the real stuff stuck.
I think you're right. It helped us to be brave. It helped us not to go. We're going for this. But while we're doing that, we're scrambling a little bit to try, get the right building blocks in place. Like it was, it was. You're moving fast and. First of all, we're trying to deliver campaigns, our core business of PR and sponsorship at the time. But at the same time, we're learning how to be business owners. Like that, we're learning how to run a business. While I brought a certain stuff from agency, I certainly wasn't running Fleischmann Hiller. Do you know what I mean? So like this was the part where I'm going, God, I need to now take my PR cap off here and put on the business operator one. And that's where you absolutely make your mistakes along the way, but you're doing it with the right intentions. People can see, like we talked about internal communications as something we haven't always got right in the business. I think that's probably one of the learnings. We're in a much better place with that now, and partly was because we didn't have a full plan. We didn't exactly know what we were doing, so it's very hard to tell people what you're doing. You're just asking them to come along with you and do a bit more and do this, and then you probably fall into a little bit of micromanagement at times, because there's certain standards, like the people that were in the company they signed up to probably be a part of a sports sponsorship company. They didn't sign up to be fast moving communications and all these new services coming in. So you're trying to upskill people, and also probably needing to set standards. Claire and myself were probably trying to, in the early days, set as many standards as we could in terms of the way we do PR. And everyone was trying to catch up, and you're going a million miles an hour, and you fall a little bit into micromanagement. And that's something we've massively clamped down on the last few years. That was the learning, that was the mistake, and it's arm the people around you to go and have a go at it. And if you bring in the right skilled people, let them at it.
I think I'd say it happens a lot in businesses that are growing, that the leadership or the team or co-founders or whatever assume that everyone knows what they have in their head. Yeah. So we're going this direction. We don't have a full plan, but we can see a pathway. But your team doesn't know that. Like, you can see the energy, you can see the pathway where you're going, but if you don't communicate that, even if you don't have a full plan, transparency is such an empowering piece for teams. Like, all people want to know is, where are we going? Let me be part of the team. Let me on the bus. Like, you know what I mean? I'm here. I'm on the train, but just show me where we're going. You know
give me coffee and eggs.
Give me coffee and eggs. Let me be part of that. Like, that's it. Just give me. And we've tried that over. And it's only in the last number of years, couple of years, we've got really good at that. I'd say we still work to do. We have always work to do, but I think that assumption at senior level that your team are hearing the conversations that you're having, and it's not the case. So I think that transparency of communication is a key one, isn't it? And one we probably learned over the years that we need to do better. Yeah.
And also, as you're starting, probably the people you're bringing in. You say Claire, senior, a lot of experience, but probably a lot of the people may have been newer or more junior and wouldn't have had just even the understanding. I remember being that in an agency once where we were like, you need to do these things, you need to log hours or whatever the thing is, and people go, oh, what?
Yeah,
we didn't have to do that before.
We ended up what I would call kind of hiring up quite a bit. You know, we would have started off with Claire, like that was an early hire where we probably were looking for started off an account manager on the consumer PR side, and we ended up with the head of a department. So every time we sort of in the early days, we took risks in terms of the person we need is actually more senior than we think. Can we afford it? Probably not, but we have momentum and we're going to do that. So even when the lads approached me, it was probably, you know, a hard decision, and then the same with Claire. And then each of the heads of the divisions, probably the one thing I would look back on is, because we were growing, we grew at about 35 to 40% year on year from a small base at the start, but that's good. So it means there's room for everyone to grow, which means then that creates a lovely ripple effect of being able to bring some new people in, being able to bring people forward within the agency, you know, and hire those 6-7 key hires over the last 10 years that are now running divisions and create divisions around them. So you're kind of, I think that's one thing we did well, where we brought people in. We were going to bring them in at one level, and we brought them in at one level up.
Happened nearly every time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you see the experience. You do an interview campaign, and you see the experience of someone like, geez, we thought we were onto this level, but think of all that experience and fantastic knowledge that we could have, and we need to be always growing and bringing in new ideas and new experience. So we always invested, and the early years was always about investing up, and we always over invested to get the right people in. And that paid dividends, because we had new ideas, new voices, new people at the leadership table, and that was. It
also meant our clients got guaranteed senior. I think one of the reasons people liked working with us in the early days was, you know, they got all of us at a senior level for everything at the start, right. And that was, you know, to our detriment.
Those timesheets.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think that though you build trust and you really see that the senior people care, then you start to build, you know, an amazing team from underneath. But I think, you know, to earn the trust, I think the client gets the most experienced people in the room, and I think then you start to really form a long-term relationship with someone.
And I want to talk, actually it's interesting because just we've talked about timesheets. It's just a small kind of observation from me. I had obviously worked with you before, and I don't think I ever had a conversation about time. It was outputs, and it's really interesting, and I understand agencies need to have that, but it was always about the outputs and the work. Do you know what I mean? So it's very interesting, but it goes to the relationships that you legacy managed to build with clients. Like, they're phenomenal. I'm not saying nobody does it, but like, you do it exceptionally well. Why is that, do you think?
Well, the business was built on relationships, I think.
Yeah, it's two parts of relationships stay strong when value is given, you know what I mean? So we always wanted to be a value-driven agency where obviously I came from the accountancy world. I did timesheets. I hate timesheets, as everyone does. I actually don't do timesheets. I never did it in legacy. I'm the only one that, like, me and Kev, I just never had that conversation. Because I was only a relationship person. I wasn't actually the PR person, even though I throw in a nugget here and there. But I think, if you can give valuable output and you're setting a clear brief, it's out that clarity of what the job is, and is there value enough in that? We still need to do timesheets, we still need to prove it out, and there might be conversations, but I think the relationship piece stays strong when you're continuing to add value, and like we always said, we want to overachieve or over kind of input into our relationships, especially in the early days, and we were always punching. We were always looking for the opportunity because we were a young agency, and we're up against the Fleischmans, WH, Teneos, like, they're all global agencies, and we're always wanting to do more and kind of compensate for that, and that's what's probably given us kind of long-term relationships, because people always felt as if we always got senior people were bought in, there was a genuine relationship there. We built, as you said, relationships, we networked, we brought people out, so we worked on that constantly. James is actually he's brilliant at that, focusing on relationships, making sure there's a little gift goes, make sure there's a touch point. CS, this word that we use in tech a lot, we're talking about at the moment, is that's the next iteration, I think, for us, is how do we really focus on that piece as we scale and 50, 60, 70 clients, I'm not sure the exact number of clients now, but how do we make sure that everyone feels the love from small to massive to big, you know? So it's a new role in the workplace, you know it from your world. CS is an important role, but we always authentically probably just did it organically. You know?
And it can't all be just us now, so then it ripples down to the people below you, and it really does, and the leaders we have now of the divisions and all the people within the teams, they have embedded those those values, I guess, or that they've seen it. They've seen how we're willing to step in. Everyone is willing to step in and solve a problem for a client. You know, don't get me wrong. We probably had to have some of the time entry conversations at the start of the business as well to put some manners on. But it is to the point of when we worked with you. It's if you're kind of losing if you're having conversations with the clients. Just purely around hours, and 100%. They don't want it either. We learnt that from Littlewoods as well, from Jeff and a few others as well. As that's just going to get you nowhere.
Yeah, because it's a race to at the end of the relationship. I think once that conversation's been had. I want to ask you just about then, you know, as you were growing, and we talked about you kind of building the plane while flying it, and you're kind of bringing people on a journey that you didn't even know what it was yourselves. But there did come a point where you're like, actually, now we need to create a plan, like a 3-year plan. What was that? Was there a moment where you were like, or did somebody kind of say, guys, you need a plan?
The lads said non-exec direct, in fairness. James and Bernard were probably aware, you know, there was pressures on, we were really there was a lot going on. So they were really good in terms of continually looking what other supports I might need or the team might need. And certainly bringing in a non-exec director, you know, about 5 years ago now was one key part.
Yeah, and I think just understanding as you go, you kind of, like I said, we're growing a lot at 40% probably in the early days. Obviously COVID was the only year we didn't grow, and then the following year after we kind of maintained through our relationships, did some creative work like yourselves and others where we just did really good work. Like we don't need to talk about COVID, but the only piece I'll mention about COVID is that culture. When I talk a lot about culture, because I played sport, is you in an organisation, any organisation or team, you invest in culture for when times get tough. And the organisations that had invested in culture and built that team bond, that when the tough times got tough, as they did for every business in the world, the real ones that had a culture that people will back each other, that they'll take whatever they need to do, they'll take the pain, they'll drive on, they'll do the extra work, they'll pivot, they'll think differently, as we did. You cash in your culture in times of crisis, and I think that's one thing we did well. And I know we'll get onto culture and values at some stage, but
COVID was also a defining moment for a lot of companies. So those first few years, probably the one thing we did well, even though we didn't have an exact plan, was we decided a few areas we weren't going to work on. So we weren't going to become a specialist events agency, we weren't going to become a promo staff agency. They're all areas we could have easily gone in full steam to. Instead, we brought in brilliant partners to work with on them. So that they were, without realising it, really good decisions along the way to allow us to focus on PR and sponsorship at the start. Then I suppose one thing that worked really well during COVID, it was a really tough year, but we had the non-exec in place. He was on our shoulder in terms of helping us make some good business decisions, but we did come out of that then with our first 3-year strategic plan.
Right.
And I think that was in 2020, that 0% that we grew in 2020 was one of our best years because we didn't go backwards.
Right.
You know what I mean? Every other year was going forward, but we scrambled and we came out of this with this 3-year plan. And even going through the process of that was brilliant. So 21, 22 and 23, we did a whole cycle of a 3-year strategy, a proper 3-year strategy, and that has absolutely been the makings of us. So we had all the learnings of the first few years under our belt, and then we sat down and said, what do we want to do? Bringing in SEO, you know, and that was something that Bernard was really driving. And one thing we always talk about, Bernard always says his knowledge is an inch deep and a mile wide. And, you know, other people we've brought in, specialists, go a mile deep. And as business owners, the three of us, and then Claire, you know, who had a brilliant consumer knowledge, but also had this really strategic. We pulled Claire out of the consumer division to work on our strategy and creativity. But that combination of leaders with, you know, Bernard looking very wide, and that inch deep is a very powerful inch deep in terms of being able to really look at this big perspective of where we could go. And he was talking about SEO, and I was saying to him, hang on, we've got PR sponsorship and we're working on social media now. SEO is quite technical, we don't know anything about it. He's like, no, and it's not just instinct, it's like from looking at the market, being able to look a little bit wider than I'm able to look, because I sort of become a connector, you know, as an MD role, you're sort of connecting in Bernard's opinion with other people's. So that, I think, bringing in SEO, it was something that was a really
what was it
defining
like that?
moment.
Because like I find that a really interesting, and when I saw it, I found a big interesting move, and I was like, really?
I think it was just the digitalisation of the world. In my head, I said probably having a little bit more time. Kev as MD is in the weeds a lot, probably doesn't have the time to get to 30,000 feet. I'm probably able to see things just from different viewpoint. And I just, as you said, we're in social media, we're doing digital activations, we're doing in that world, but I just felt we needed to be more digital as an agency and scale up that presence online. And if you look at through the marketing mix, so what are you trying to do for your clients, and how do you stay at the top table, and how do you give that advice? You need to go from reputation, from PR, from CEO all the way through to the brand. You need to go through your events, your activations, your consumer. You need to go to your B2B, and you need to live on digital. So our digital started with SEO, now obviously PPC, digital PR, which is a fantastic, in the UK it's a lifeblood of brands about PR in the digital landscape, providing links and backlinks and linking into your brand and pushing towards sales, which is the way the world is going. We'll all be on e-commerce all day long.
Yeah.
That's our next growth, I believe, will be more social, more e-commerce, more from PR to sale. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you go from directly from there
to measure
that
yeah.
and to get consumers from an activation, from sports sponsorship, from PR to the purse, to that piece. And we just need to evolve as an agency to bring in those skill sets. And I think that was my initial as in inch deep. My view was we needed to get into that space, that hunch. And again, we were looking at hiring someone, and then we come across through an introduction into Micheál Brennan in Cork, S&B Clicks, fantastic creative SEO person, and he had that creativity in him, which is probably maybe different to some SEOs. Not to discredit SEO's credibility, but I saw that in him. He had 10 or 15 clients. He was a one-man band, and we probably gave him that journey piece. And why did he come on with us? He's in Cork, he's still there, works remote, comes up and down every couple of weeks. But great relationships in international customer base, right, which was really energizing for me. We always had that idea to be more international, to do stuff in the UK, to do stuff in the US. Digital gives you that world as well. So sponsorship can be international as in, but you have to put people on the ground, local media, local. Whereas SEO, digital, e-commerce, it gives you that global reach, you know what I mean, and gives us that opportunity, you know. So that's what I saw. And again, we courted him for a while and brought him in, and he's been a fantastic leader, team of 7 or 8 people now.
Yeah. And is it true you found him by Googling the most handsome man in Ireland?
Yeah, he has. I was wondering who it was. Yeah.
He was Googling to see if it was himself.
But that was he's a great, for anyone watching, Google the most handsome man in Ireland, and Micheál Brennan comes up, who was a very handsome man, but he's created a journey and a great little campaign piece around how to break the code of SEO, you know what I mean, and it's a great campaign. He won awards for it. So that was, I knew that he was a creative person, you know what I mean. I liked where his mindset was. And we said, can we get this to 2x, 3x number of clients in 3 years' time? And that's proven that. We have now 7 people. He's grown the division by 20-30% each year for the last 3 years.
One of the fastest growing ones, and then that starts to feed into the plan, and back to that 3 years. It's easier then to make a plan. In the next 3 years, we're going to go from X to Y in terms of revenue. We're going to build up towards 40 people. We're going to build up towards 5 divisions. We get a real clarity around our services emerges because we already had the sponsorship and PR. We brought in SEO, and then you can connect the two. You get digital PR. And then we had a brand division, which was linked to our sponsorship division, and we broke those two out. So I think the planning becomes a lot easier then, and then you're easier to communicate with your staff that this is where we're going. Yeah. You know, corporate PR was in one sense the last piece of the jigsaw of that 3-year plan. And in hindsight, why didn't we do that a lot earlier? Well, I think the reason was because we wanted to do it in our own way. Like B2B corporate space is one that, like, it has to align with legacy, otherwise it may not work. So we kind of waited until we were ready, and it's only this year we've really we're going after corporate PR in a more creative way.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you know, B2B and corporate PR, and I've talked about it in the podcast before, there can be just mind-numbingly boring, horrible stuff. So you're coming at it from more of a creative perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, and James Elms, who we brought in to run it, has a creative background as well as a corporate. So there's the corporate side. Listen, there's loads of directions we could go with this, and we might do them all in time, but there's corporate, there's tech. But on the B2B side, we do feel there's something that B2Bs still need creative campaigns. Like they really do, and that's Claire's a big believer in that. And I think that's it. That's one that we're massively excited about now, that we've built up a bit of creativity across the agency, and how can we apply that to B2B? So we're still learning how we'll do that, but I'm really excited about that as our next service.
You talked a bit about as you scale, but the importance of culture, and that helps you in the hard times. But you've seen business scale, and the hard thing to do is scale the culture as the company scales, because with the three of you, and then when there was 5, 6, 8, it's easier, right? But when you get to whatever 40 plus people, how do you create that culture? Do you have a set of behaviours that everyone adheres to, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, I think it's never an easy one, as in how do you keep it connected when you're growing. And so we did another exercise, I don't know how long ago it was, but be brave, be sound, and be curious. We said, what are the things that actually matter to us? What's simple, what's memorable, and we said, let's not do what corporates do, put them up on the wall and leave them there and let them not be part of the behaviour, because values are only there if they're actually the behaviours of the people on the ground. And one of the most proudest pieces I always say is, you can be anything you want to be in legacy. Literally, if you want to go down a route in the sphere of what we do, go for it. We'll back you. And I think it's a great place to be for the fundamentals of people, what people want. They want to be able to grow. They want to be able to push themselves in the workplace. They want to feel part of a tribe, part of a team. So I think that's a really powerful thing. As we've done, like Niamh came in. Niamh is running our consumer division. She's a fantastic leader. She's blasting it out, blasting the division. As you said about brand, Shireen came in for Niamh on a Shireen McDonough came in when Niamh was on her maternity leave, and we ended up creating a new division for her because we wanted her part of the business. She came from a more advertising background. She brought a new sense of perspective on things.
And that's an example, I think, of the independent agency, the growth mindset it is, but it's the values piece that if you find people along the way that you feel are really those values, like that was probably one of our best mistakes, was creating 7 values.
Right.
And then a month later, Byrne going, name our values. I think I got 2 of them, and I was after creating them, going through this process. So landing on those 3 became, I do believe now, it's taken us a few years, I do believe they are behaviours now in the agency. All of it, we lead with it with all of our clients. Like the be sound piece is the one that's connected most, but the be curious and be brave are probably 2 we're really proud of, because be curious is looking to see what else is out there, and then the be brave is going for it and challenging your clients. But the be sound piece was it Jim Gavin that said it was the permission to permission to have a difficult conversation. Be sound is not just about being nice to each other. It's about giving feedback in the moment, James, and not letting things fester.
And James will say that, and he said, as we are family, but he says we're not a family, we're a high performing team. And sometimes organisations can be tried to be too family and too nice. So what are the standards you set? And you can still be sound in this, and respect comes from honest feedback and stuff like that. And that's back to that trust. That comes from accountability, honest feedback, been pushed, and empowering people to get after things and giving them the rope to kind of figure it out. And if they make mistakes, fine. But you're having a go at something. That's kind of what we truly believe in,
And it's like, you can imagine, again, like there's going to be people who will be really drawn to that. Do you know what I mean? To brave, sound, curious. And there's going to be people who are like, oh, that's just not for me. And that's brilliant, because it's so clear that that's who you are. Exactly. And that's what you want from people.
And clients, I think, as well, they do respond to that genuinely if they can feel it. But it's also, I think, about, I think you'll connect with them more by just them knowing it.
And that's why corporate PR now with James Elms, who's a very personal sound person, and not doing it. It was part of our journey, and it's the right time now for it. But 10 years ago we weren't ready for corporate PR. We didn't have the grey hairs that we all have now. You need to have experience in life, you need to have learned, you need to be able to go into a boardroom and talk to a CEO and leadership team and with credibility and authenticity. And we have now, in our own ways, we're not financial gurus, as in from the stock market or like that, and that's not what we're selling for the corporate. But we know our corporate PR, we know how to activate it in our own way. I think that's going to be a fruitful kind of journey over the next number of years.
And I guess those moments, you've talked about it a bit, and that we knew we weren't ready, but we are now. Like, is that, how do you know those moments that you are ready? Because that, again, challenging, isn't it?
I mean, it is, and it comes back to loads of these conversations, and you're kind of continually challenging each other. Go, why haven't we done that yet? And allowing yourself to say, well, it just doesn't feel right now, or that's next on the radar, and you're trying to get that. So I think it has to, you have to feel like if we can keep doing this in a legacy way, we'll keep everyone along the journey and we'll keep true to what we are. And I do think that is important. Otherwise, you're just adding on services for the sake of it. So, like, we'll absolutely fail in some things as we go, but I think the services that we've made the decisions on have all worked because we've kind of sometimes taken our time to get to them. But I think that's been important.
You touched on a bit the longevity of some of the relationships you've had with clients, and I think being sounding curious has probably helped that along the way. Are there other things that you think, without giving away secret sauce, that have helped with some of those relationships? Because like, it's, for me, having been both sides, I know the benefits of long and trusting relationships with an agency. You know, you can have better conversations. But like, apart from sounding curious, what are the things that matter?
The two for me is that there is an element of really caring about the standard of work that you do, and I think that comes from, again, an agency that people feel really part of, and the people that you bring in behind you, the Claires and everyone else like that. There is a real, the clients can really see a sort of a passion coming through for, we want this work to be brilliant. So that's certainly one area. And then I think as well is the time invested in the relationship at the early point and getting to know the client is massively important, because when you need to have, push back on them or them push back on you, it's coming from a place of healthy respect. It's an easy conversation. Everyone knows we're trying to do this for the right reasons. So I think establishing that at the start, that we're really willing to go the extra mile, I think really helps.
I think the other piece in that is that the reason that maybe long-term relationships don't work in creative industries is because things get stale and people get comfort zone. So something we're really conscious of is about how would we look at our clients every year period and say, if we were going into a pitch, what energy would we bring to an idea or to this new campaign? Are we spending the 40 hours we would do in a pitch? If we were going out tomorrow to pitch for energy, or we've been a client of ours for a long time, how do we give them that as a client, a long-term relationship? And that's how we need to do it. So we need to look at all of our clients, and every now and again, when the time is right, through a campaign or a period, now we need to look at these with fresh eyes and invest that time. And then the clients will see that. They'll see the work that comes in. They'll see the new approach. So we need to do that as an agency with our relationships, that every now and again, Mary Maguire on the sponsorship side, who knows sponsorship well, and expertise, and having the experts in the room, but also pushing yourself to say, right, how do we look at this and give them that love and make them know that we're doing it. Yeah. Conscious and intentional communication. We're looking at this as if we're a new client. We're coming in, we're going to spend 50 hours on just brainstorming. Yeah. And that is a valued piece of kit. That's a customer success, CS piece, that builds relationships and builds trust.
And I'll give you an example, because you may not know it, but when I was working at Indeed, and Shireen proposed something to us, and I went over and she goes, yeah, this will come up, I think it's a great idea. And I went back and I was like, I don't think that's right for us. And Shireen came back and was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and here's 3 reasons why I think it's good. And I said, okay, let's have a conversation about it. And what I loved about that, and it's exactly what you're talking about, is I had that sense of someone who really cared as much about what I cared about and understood the business problem, because what was trying to be achieved here was very different to any other market. And I was like, she gets it. And so it wasn't like, oh, it'd be good for, this. It was all the business problems we were trying to solve for. And that sticks with you. Yeah, it sticks with me, and it's a very unique thing. And so that idea of how do we keep thinking about this client as if we're pitching for them? Because they say, the whole agency thing is, the minute you win a client is the day you lose it, right? Yeah. And that's what you kind of try to work against. Yeah. As you think then to the future, I know you've kind of thought about working outside of Ireland. How's that coming about? What's your thought there? You're not busy enough?
Yeah, exactly. And funny, just having finished our 3-year strategy and taking a moment, about 5 minutes to go, God, wasn't that great? You suddenly realise you need to do another 3-year strategy. So that was the hard part of his chats to Byrne or James, everyone is, what are we doing next? So, I think the 3-year strategy would set us up for the next few years. But what's been really interesting about the last couple of months, apart from going from 3 to 5 divisions, is we've linked in with Enterprise Ireland, and it's come at a really good time for us, because we're starting a new cycle of 3 to 5 year strategy planning. So we're kind of in the middle of building a new plan, and part of that is market expansion, not just going global for the sake of it, is working through our services. How does Mihall's division, if that's already part, has clients in UK and US, how do we actually create a plan around that? So I think naturally, our services are getting, I suppose we're more a wider service business now. So where do you go from there? You start to look at internationally for some services, and then there's still a journey for some of the services to go in Ireland. So it's been a good process to start again on a 3 year cycle, and coincidentally having to join forces with Enterprise Ireland means we can kind of get new ideas on how to do 3 year planning. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of months, and it's really enjoyable.
And that'll be led by the ambition of the team.
And looking at the market and seeing where we feel, like we've done with the services. We've a specialist executive team now to really tasked with looking watching the industry, where are the gaps, and then how do we, if we wanted to go after a space, how do we work together to form a plan? So I think that's an exciting part as well.
Brave and and exciting for people to be.
Exactly.
You keep saying the journey is there for everyone to build on. When you look at some of those international markets, what are some of the things you're seeing in terms of maybe future trends or things that you're kind of going, oh, we could maybe bring that here, but there's a gap for what we do there? Like, are there things you're...
I mean, digital PR is one, and we've made 2 hires in the UK in northern England. So two of our Mihall's team is based there, and I think that's because we need eyes on the ground there. You're seeing a lot of that. It's really what we feel is the next big thing. So that's I suppose a real obvious one for us to just continue to grow there. But then I think outside of that, it is about assessing what services we're doing and just opening our eyes to where that could go. So I mean that's exactly what we'll be doing for the next little while, is working with the team to see where could your division go.
How will technology play a part? Because I mean, there's obviously huge disruptions for good and for bad. What's your view on where that's going?
The team are starting to use what would have been the threats, the AIs, the ChatGPTs in ways, and it's up to the digital team and the others to find ways of using it. Like a lot of our own PR, we're having a bit of fun trialing AI images and doing things, but there's efficiencies that are coming in through ChatGPT. So there's a fear factor to technology, but I think from our point of view is, like, we need to just be purely confident that our own skill sets will always be needed. The human is always, like, the creativity will always come. I know it is branded about a bit at the moment, but we just need to be confident that the people we bring in are what people buy, or what clients buy. So then great, if we can use technology to fast forward what we're doing to make our lives easier, then we will do that. If we can use technology to help our creativity, we will do that. But the creativity will still come, from our people. But there's definitely opportunities within the new technologies too.
Well, writer's block should be no more.
True.
Like that thing about I'm on a blank page. I'm technology gives you, fast forwards you 20, 30, 40, 50%. You still need to make it relevant, to bring in the brand. We will still be needed, our industry will still be needed, and PR is as strong as ever as a product, and then the creative side is as strong as ever as well. But technology just allows you to fast forward things, to spend time doing the valuable piece, the creative piece, spend more time thinking about
piece, all of that.
Take away some of the heavy lifting admin stuff. If you were to describe legacy maybe today, because again, maybe some people, maybe in Ireland and people outside of Ireland who may not are listening, watching, don't know legacy. How would you describe it? No marketing jargon allowed.
So
I couldn't do it.
Well, I think we are fundamentally a creative communications agency, and I think that's we are clearer on our services. PR sponsorship and building out them into brand sponsorship and digital. So we are a bit clear on our sponsors. Like, we have had this challenge. We were known as a sports agency at the start, then we were known as a PR agency, and we're trying to evolve that as a wider. So a creative community agency that does a lot of services is one, and I think we've just worked, the tiny bit of marketing jargon I'll add in is we've just worked on our own new positioning ourselves. And that's, that when we get a brief, we assume nothing and explore everything. So we don't just default to we're going to do a PR campaign or whatever. So I think that is something where we have the ability within the skill set we have to take it from the client side and not just what our services are, and say we can do most services now. So we should be able to just think then that what do they want to communicate? What do they want to get to their client, and how their customer, and how can we get there? So I think we're still at our core a creative communications agency.
I love assume nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's brilliant culturally, I think.
I think so. And it's amazing the amount of assumptions you immediately make with like my old PR hat on. I'll make some assumptions, and it's other people then that'll challenge me. And we've always talked about hiring better, and it's the people that are challenging you makes you realise, well, I do default. All of us default to what we know best, and that's not always the best thing for the client.
And some of our best campaigns have been research driven. So that's nothing is getting under the bonnet of where is this demographic living? Where are they reading? Where are they finding their content? What are they on? What technology are they on? What magazines are they reading? And it's actually the assumption versus reality can be stark, and which we've improved many a time. Actually, I wouldn't have thought that now, as you said, because you just assumed that your own life. You know what I mean? So that's a nice one, yeah.
My last question to you, and I actually, from talking to you, I'm not sure if there is going to be anything here, but is there anything that you wish you'd known when you started or when you joined that you know now that you could say to yourself back then? Yeah,
I think we've loads of learnings, loads of things that haven't worked, and I think you need to have that.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't take many of them away. Obviously, at the time, you would do anything to change the decision of a client or whatever happened. Pay yourself eventually. Got there eventually. But I think you need that. You know what I mean? And that's what rounds you. But I think you need to have those scars on your back to grow. And that's for me has been the most I did a master's in college, and that was to play football. But the learnings you get from real life, actually, an MBA. My MBA has been through the journey of legacy, but the learnings we've had through that experience and the experience I'm having now is just phenomenal. And there's sleepless nights, there's stress, there's anxiety, there's grey hair. But I know when I look back in 5 years' time, and even looking back at this moment in legacy, I think you need them. They strengthen you. We had resilience along the way, and we rolled through them. And without those ones, it's hard to. I always say, you can't enjoy the highs if you haven't had the lows. Yeah. Because if you're always just meandering at a nice up and down, you need to have the epic highs. And I had them in sport, epic highs and epic lows. And I think it's the same in the business world. You will have both.
And my one's similar. It's about your gut. You know, I would have doubted my own gut at times, because is that too instinctive? Is I making too? My own perception of what your gut decision is has changed. And for me, it's made up of all of those experiences that you get along the way make up your gut decision. So your gut decision is actually a brilliant place to be if it's made up of all those thousands of little learnings and nuggets, as opposed to a quick instinctive decision. A gut is a well thought out decision. So I suppose just to trust, to go back and trust the gut, it's largely right, if you know what I mean, because it's based on your experience.
Yeah. It's been brilliant to hear the story, because I've known bits of it, I haven't known all of it. It's incredible. I started by saying, and I didn't know it's one of your three values, the soundness. And it's incredible, because it comes through. It comes through in how you talk, how you interact with people, the work you do with people. And it's incredible. And again, even the name, you are creating this legacy for, even think about the people that work with you, where they go and the journey they're on, and what, the enjoyment they're getting out of it.
To see some of them running businesses and running marketing divisions and working with some of them along the way, and we always said that if you leave, if people want to move on as they will, and some are going to go travelling and different things, and people left for loads of different reasons along the journey, but we've always done it the right way and tried to stay friendly with them, try to help them as where we could with opportunities or intros wherever we can, and that comes back in spades, you know what I mean? So that's a rewarding piece. You said throughout our journey, we've said people move on, we've had 50 or 60 people through the doors over the last number of years, you know what I mean? It's been great. 35 heading towards
watching
40.
The people grow as true legacy has absolutely been the most rewarding part,
That's brilliant. Well, an amazing journey story. Thanks so much for sharing it with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Conor. Enjoyed it.
That's it for this episode of That's What I Call Marketing. And don't forget, there's a 3-part series. So the next part of the series is going to be all about creativity, which you've heard a bit about today. So stay tuned for that. So thanks a million from me, your host, Conor Byrne, for tuning in. And we'll catch you at the next episode.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.